Welcome back to Loki Tech. Today we have a new item, a table. As the first step, before we build a PC, we should have a table first.
What do you need to build a desktop? Well, of course, first you need a table.
Oh well, just skip that table. Now I will tell you how to build a high-end PC, maybe can consider as high-end or medium-end PC with the minimalist budget. So the first thing you will to find for the high-end PC is the processor and the GPU. Let's skip the GPU part because the GPU is very expensive right now. So let's look at the processor first. You might be wondering to buy the Intel or AMD right now, but for me right now, if you going to buy AMD, I only suggest you to buy 5900X or above. Below that, example, if you want to buy the 5600X, I still prefer to buy the Core i7 10700 or maybe 10700 KF. It's still better value, better multitasking than 5600X. Well, in some gaming, 5600X will win, but that's just 1080p. Not many people will play high-end gaming for 1080p. Okay, now let's talk about the parts that I will tell you right now. First is the processor choice. My opinion is currently the best part is either you buying the Core i7 10700 or maybe 10700F, and the next up is 10900 or 10900F. Why? The first thing is you actually don't need the key series. Why? Because you maybe get around 2 to 5% FPS improvement, but it all depends on your GPU and also your resolution. And the second is, if you overclock the K series, you might be need the water cooling. Well, the water cooler is actually quite expensive for the price. So for me, I will just skip it. If you buy the cheap water cooler, you might get a lot of problem. Example, the pump problem, or maybe it will leak. I will also skip the 11th gen for this part. I only recommend you to buy 11400F for the 11th gen. The others is I will skip. The reason is for the gaming, actually this 10700 is still better than the 11700 in gaming using the PCIe 3. In PCIe 4, 11700 will win just in a little game only. The rest is 10700 still winning. Moving out is the 11900. I also skip it because it only has 8 cores. It's also more expensive than my 10900F. In multitasking, 10900F is better. For the gaming, yeah, maybe it will just winning in 1080p just a little, but actually nothing in 2K resolution. So I will stick to 10900F because it's cheaper and also better multitasking performance. Now, how to unlock those CPU full potential? First, you need to have a good motherboard. Well, you might be wondering to buy the Z series motherboard, example like Z490 or Z590 motherboard. Well, here I will recommend you to buy this new motherboard, the Asrock B560 Steel Legend. This motherboard is already support up to 200 watt power limit bypass. So you actually doesn't need to worry about using the Core i9 10900F, which consuming around 170 watt at the maximum performance at the sustained load. So with this motherboard, 10900F can perform with full potential when you do rendering or some multitasking. This motherboard also quite cheap. It's only cost you around 135 to 137 bucks in my country, and you might be get cheaper in your country. Example, you might be get it at $130 only. I really recommend this motherboard since it's very cheap, only 135 to 137 only, and you can use it to unlock your full performance of any your Intel CPU, unless the K series like 10900K or 11900K. The rest of the CPU you can use it at full performance. Next, we moving out of the cooler choice. Well, for the cooler choice, maybe you wondering to have a water cooler. It's very good, but I will not recommend you to buy a cheap water cooler. Why? Because cheap water cooler usually, example, this brand have a lot of problem in the pump. So not even 1 year or maybe after 1 year, the pump is already have error. You need to go to the warranty to repair it, and you might be get a problem again next year. So the best still the air cooler. Firstly, you can get this. My recommendation is the first is this Jonsbo CR1000 or maybe CR1400. This cooler is already can cool your CPU. Example, the Core i7 10700 in the sustained load. It will keep your CPU cool at the sustained load only around 70 degrees Celsius with the ambient 27 degree. So maybe if you're casing at 40 degrees Celsius, this cooler still can handle it at around 80 degrees Celsius at the sustained load. Of course, that one is sustained load. If you use it only for gaming, this cooler is already very suspicious enough for either Core i7 or even Core i9. If you using Core i9 with this cooler, for the sustained load, it reach around 82 degrees Celsius, and that one is of course with 27 degree ambient. So I think you need to limit the power to 160 watt at the maximum if you want to use this cheap cooler. And if you want to have full potential with your Core i9 10900F and your ambient is around 40 degree, maybe you can consider buying the water cooler, or maybe you can buy the better air cooler. But yeah, maybe you just need to buy better air cooler which TDP rated at 180 watt is already sufficient enough, because this one is only 160 watt TDP rated. But so far it's do very well job. If you just use it for gaming or you limit it to 150 to 160 watt is very good already. And the price, of course, only 17 bucks. You buy the $360 CPU and you just need to add $20 more to cool down your processor. That's already enough. As I said in the first time, why I not recommend you to buy below 5900X for Ryzen? Yeah, this is the reason. I will recommend you to buy 10900F instead of 5800X. Why? You buy this 10900F for $360 plus this Asrock Steel Legend B560 Steel Legend for $135. The total price is the same with only the 5800X only without the motherboard. So you buying processor plus motherboard is already equal with 5800X processor only. Even though you add the cooler, it's still nothing because the cooler price is only $20. And you can see for the multitasking performance, 10900F is scoring 15K. So it's same with 5800X scores in Cinebench R23. So you will get the same performance, I mean the same multitasking performance with 5800X, but you get cheaper price, or you already get motherboard plus processor instead of processor only. For the gaming, 1080p 5800X of course will win. But of course, that's one you will need to have the high graphic card. If example you cannot afford high-end graphic card, maybe because of this mining season, you cannot get a good graphic card. So example, you just using your 2080 or 2080 Ti and you play it with 2K resolution. You will not notice the difference between 10900F and 5800X. There will be no difference in the FPS. You will only notice it if you using maybe 3080 or maybe 3090. And it will be noticeable at the 1080p only. So for me, I still prefer buying the 10900F instead of 5800X. For 5600X, it's the same reason. I still recommend you to buy the Core i7-10700 because it has more core, better multitasking performance. Well, you make me buy the 11700 since it has 10% better multitasking performance than 10700. But for me, I don't think 11700 is good because 10700 is actually better in gaming performance. And you make me getting 10700F for the cheap. If you want to buy the 5600X right now, you make me get around $350 if you bundle with motherboard. And if you not bundle it with motherboard, it can cost $370. That's the problem. So overall, this build actually is very good for the price. If you're going to do multitasking performance, I recommend you to buy 10900F. If you're going to play games, you can do it with 10700, and yeah, it's already good for multitasking also. And this motherboard, the Asrock B560 Steel Legend, is the best choice for those processor. It already can handle all of this processor sustained load without any throttling. For the CPU cooler, if you're going for Core i7, this one is very good already. You don't need to spend extra money. Maybe if you want to get the RGB sync cooler or maybe the better looking cooler, you can. But for me, for the budget user, you don't need to spend more than $25 for extra cooler. You don't need to spend like water cooler because I think it's just wasted. If you buy the cheap one, you will have problem. If you buy the expensive one, it's not worth it lah for those processor. Except if you're using the T series CPU or you're using the Mini ATX case since there is no space. This one only 135 and this one only 17. You don't need to spend any extra cost for extra motherboard, example to upgrade the motherboard or maybe the fan, and you already get the high-end gaming PC already. Of course, without the GPU. Well, that's all for me now. I hope this video can help you to choose the right parts for your PC build. If you like this video, please press like and thanks for watching.